Hey guys, Sarge here. What I have for you guys today is a interview with the guy that runs the One Shot One Kill page. We're going to go over some of the things that newer gun owners and maybe even older gun owners who are lacking some experience or maybe even some knowledge on certain things because they're afraid to ask questions. We're going to cover some of those general purpose questions for you guys today. And Juan, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Guys, my name's Juan. Like Sarge here mentioned, we do operate the social media platforms, One Shot, One Kill. That's YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, you name it, Twitter, the works, Snapchat. And what we're simply looking to do, our overall mission is to help kind of bridge the gap between all gun owners, but in particular right now, all things considered with the coronavirus and quarantines and such, we want to bridge the gap between new gun owners, and we want to introduce you guys and help expose resources that are not only going to bridge that gap, but they're going to help you gain some knowledge with regards to safety, carrying procedures, handling procedures, shooting, marksmanship. But above all, the most important thing here is always going to be safety. And number two, close runner-up, in my opinion, is to be aware of the resources that are available to you guys as new gun owners and experienced gun owners. All right, it's important for all of us to communicate and spread some knowledge, guys.
Okay, outstanding. Well, hey, for the first question here, I think it's kind of important too, especially
Yep.
for newer gun owners or people who maybe are getting into carrying for the first couple
hmm
times, just seeing what individuals carry. So, what do you carry as your everyday carry?
So my everyday carry is a small rotation. Um, a lot of people out there do tend to kind of rotate between firearms. I'm one of those guys, and I'm between my Heckler and Koch or HK VP9. It is a full size firearm. I'm a little bit of a bigger dude. I stand 6 foot tall. I got a little bit of this going on, so I can conceal a VP9 no problem. And then summertime, when I'm really just kind of looking to wear just a simple T-shirt, I focus on carrying my 6-hour P365. So reasons for carrying both of those. The VP9, in my opinion, for me personally, in my hands and all my training, is the most comfortable firearm that I've shot. I've got a wide variety, of handguns. I've got CZP-10s, Smith and Wessons, the M&P models, Tauruses, just to kind of go tinker around with. And then the P365, just because of that micro compact feature with a great capacity with 11 rounds, that's 10 plus 1. So I'm comfortable with both platforms. And I think at the end of the day is the most important thing is what are you comfortable with? And the only way that you're going to find out is to safely get to the range, seek that knowledge, train with somebody who's experienced, and get a good feel for the firearms yourself. So for me, HK VP9 and 6-hour P365, I would say about 75-25 in favor of the VP9.
Okay, and do you carry anything else other than the pistol, like extra magazine, tourniquet, flashlight?
So I do. The tourniquet I normally keep with me close by. And what I mean by that is it's either on my pack. I do have some tack plates from Matchpoint USA on my everyday carry pack, and then I also have one in my vehicle at all times. So rarely do I go anywhere without without the pack with me, whether it's hiking, whether it's to and from specific locations, here and about, out and about in town. I do have them with me, close proximity for sure. Magazines, I always do carry an extra magazine. It's nice to have that extra 15 rounds in the VP9's case, and it's always nice to have that extra 10 rounds in the P365's case.
All right, outstanding. Yeah, I carry a P220 Legion 10 millimeters. My everyday carry. I carry 2 extra mags with that.
Mm-hmm.
I carry a knife, a flashlight, and a tourniquet with
Yep.
that. As well.
Yep. Yeah.
All right.
That's a Canon, man. So
Well, it handles it well. So it's
it
a
does.
unlike the other P220 series where they're aluminum frame. It's an all steel gun. So it weighs like 45 ounces. So it tames the 10 millimeter just fine. So
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. Right on, man. Beautiful gun, by the way. Beautiful.
yeah, well, thank you.
Yeah.
why do you carry a firearm?
So, this is a discussion that I've had with a lot of people, and I'm really glad that you asked it. At the end of the day, or well, really at the beginning of the day, I should say, I think the most important message that I've been able to successfully get across to most people, even those that tend to kind of argue against carrying a firearm, is that nobody personally gets to choose when evil decides to, you don't get to choose when evil will come into your close proximity, right? Seeking to cause harm. So that being said, for me, it's important to carry because it's just so unpredictable, all right? Especially nowadays with everything that's going on, the wonderful news that the media is sharing that a lot of these crimes are going to go unpunishable, and now you compound that with um, personnel being released from prisons, right? So it's important to carry because there's just this heightened sense of almost danger and unknown around us, and it's getting closer and closer to home. And what I mean by that is you hear it on the news and you're like, man, that sucks, man, that sucks. But now you're starting to hear it closer and closer to home, right? 5 miles away, 10 miles away, in your own town. So it's important for us to carry. I hold that God-given right to self-defense to heart, and so that's why I carry.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I one thing I teach or preach rather in my training courses is I don't deal in absolutes. So when people say that this is absolutely what's going to take place, you don't know that. So
You
when
don't know that.
people teach the 3, 3, and 3, where your gunfight will be 3 seconds, 3 rounds, and 3 yards, there's
Hmm.
no way you can tell me what my gunfight will be. Um,
Yeah.
you can't tell me I'm going to be sick next week because you don't know.
Hmm.
Uh,
Correct.
so the way I look at it is why do you wear a seatbelt? Well, that's the same
Hmm.
reason why I carry a gun.
Hmm.
Why do you have a fire extinguisher, hopefully in your home? Well, that's the same reason
Hmm.
why I have a gun.
Yeah.
And this case in point for the individuals that don't have fire extinguishers in their homes, you want one in the middle of a fire or before one?
Yeah.
Well, I
Yeah.
would.
Absolutely.
I,
Great
I
point.
hope I
Great
hope
point.
there's not a fire in my home, and then I'm like, dude, I should have bought a fire
Hmm.
extinguisher.
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
So that's kind of that. That's my methodology with carrying a firearm. The next
Absolutely.
question I have here is, what training experience do you have, and in what regard would you hold training experience to a new shooter or somebody who's carrying a gun?
So, my background in the military is a Marine Corps veteran. I served between from the years 2003 to 2008, and covered a variety of job titles in that case. But it all centered around firearms. I was a crew chief on CH-53s, which is the super stallion for the Marine Corps, and the crew chief's roles and responsibilities included being a door gunner and a tail gunner at the time. So firearms being a huge passion of mine, jumping into the military already, that was, I mean, I felt at home, flying in a helicopter, which was just phenomenal. It's just exhilarating, right? A huge adrenaline rush to begin with. And then now you compound that with firearms and the ability to not only learn the different platforms. We were limited to only a 50 caliber machine gun on 53s, and that's because the 53 is such a massive platform. The rotor wash for any caliber smaller than 50 cal would actually be impacted by that rotor wash, so it would actually dip and drop significantly. So 50 caliber was a lot of fun on a helicopter platform. So I grew up through the ranks. I left a sergeant in the Marine Corps. I left as a sergeant in the Marine Corps, and right before leaving the Marine Corps, an opportunity came up to be a marksmanship and firearms instructor to help requalify Marines on an annual basis, and just kind of keep those marksmanship and firearms skills, top notch once a year. Um, so my experience that I bring out of the Marine Corps into the civilian world and to new gun ownership, um, I tie that experience extremely. I consider those two experiences very, very close and very similar, because at the beginning of the day, every single day, out at the range, training Marines, we always covered what we always cover out in the civilian world anyway, and that is the 4 weapon safety rules, and that is the firearms rules, right? Treat, never, keep, and those 4 rules have never left my training, and I continue to disperse that knowledge to everybody because it's important to be a firearms owner. It's important to slide that word in there, responsible gun owner, and you can't do that without being aware of the safety rules.
Okay, yeah. Well, since leaving the Marine Corps, have you trained with any firearms instructors or anything like that outside of the Marine Corps?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a place called Liberty Firearms Institute here in Colorado. It's actually in Johnstown, and there's former military training happening there. It's a group called the McIra Group. Fantastic group of guys and gals, and they focus on not only running, the leagues, the weekly leagues there. So you get to do a little bit of indoor competitive shooting, just kind of get your foot in the door to competition. But they also focus on outdoor stuff, entry pistol, entry rifle, and then they kind of, structurally progress through more and more tactical scenarios. And I put that in quotations because everybody here in the civilian world has a different definition of tactical. But it's important, number one, you get familiar with the firearm. They're good courses. You get familiar with the firearms, and these former law enforcement and former military guys. Actually, the person who runs that show is a former Navy SEAL, and he has a great impact here in Northern Colorado with regards to training. He has just a wealth, just a huge amount of knowledge that he's able to pass down to new gun owners and people like myself, right? At the end of the day, I don't consider myself a Mr. Know-it-all. It's important to continue to seek knowledge. I'm experienced. I know how to shoot, and I consider myself a safe weapons handler. However, it's important to continue to seek knowledge. And that group, the McIra Group at Liberty Firearms Institute, working with a place called a firearms and gunsmithing shop called Phoenix Weaponry, they combine and provide firearms and are able to provide training in a safe environment and kind of introduce you to that tactical world as well.
Okay, very cool. Hey, I actually forgot you were in Colorado.
I'm in Colorado, yep.
Yeah, so you need to look up Ben Morgan. He runs Battleline Tactical. It's Ben Morgan and Chris Tonto. Chris Tonto's famous for 13 hours in Benghazi.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Ben Morgan is an outstanding guy. I think he's in Colorado Springs. I could be wrong with that, but yeah, definitely. That's something I would definitely, if I was closer to Colorado, I would definitely.
I will. I'll definitely reach out to them, Ben Morgan, and what I'll do is exactly what we've been doing with everybody else. Is people have been reaching out and saying, "Hey, we like what you're doing with the platform. More importantly, when can we get together and just kind of train together, right? Share some knowledge and safely go out and have some fun. Break the barriers and bridge the gap between new gun owners and what we consider ourselves as experienced gun owners."
Right. And one thing I say as well with that is I think it is important as a firearms instructor to train personally as much as you are training other people. So I recently went and took a course with James Yeager from Tactical Response. I have other courses scheduled that I'm going to be taking with like Clint Smith of Thunder Ranch, Steve Fisher of Sentinel Concepts, some other individuals that I'm looking at. And I think the best way to show for me to be a teacher is how are you as a student? And if you're the guy that's always given knowledge, but you don't go and seek knowledge from others, where did you get your knowledge from? Because what I've learned from my time in the military is it was extremely dated. I served as a primary marksmanship instructor in the Army, and it was extremely dated. The rifle handling was dated, and the pistol handling was a joke. So when I started going through some of the pistol stuff, it was not anything of what people think that it is. It wasn't. It was pretty bad. And then even training law enforcement officers, now doing my training company, I've seen that as well, where their training is a qualification course. And if you look at their qualification courses, it does not match what they experience in shootings.
Hmm.
There's one police department where their qualification course is from 10 to 25 yards, but their shot percentage hit ratio at 3 to 10 yards is like
Hmm.
maybe 17 shots to one hit.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's not okay. Where are those bullets going?
Yeah. Exactly.
So
Yep.
so it's stuff like that. I definitely think being a responsible gun owner is
Hmm.
knowing that we should take it upon ourselves to constantly train and push ourselves. If you
Yeah.
look at
Absolutely.
if you look at being a driver, you went and took a driving test. You passed the test, they gave you a license, and then you drove every day for the next couple years. Like you always just drive. Well, we don't do that with firearms. A lot of people go
Hmm.
get license to carry, and then they say, "Hey, I have a license to carry. I passed the 50
Yep.
round qualification," and then they never go to the range. We should
Correct.
shoot as much as we drive to be good at
Yep.
driving and shooting. In my opinion,
Yeah.
that's how I kind of look
Yeah.
at that.
And I agree with that. Two things you touched on there. Number one is obviously um, maintaining currency, and um, that's covered in the everyday training, right? If you can make it out every weekend, get out there every weekend. We're not telling you to force the issue and be out there every single day. Let's be realistic here also. Of course, that'd be ideal and fun, but yeah, I mean, once a weekend, twice a month, whatever consistency you're capable of achieving, hold yourself accountable to that, because at the end of the day, when what hits the fan,
Yeah.
you have to resort back to your training, because that's what your mind is going to resort back to, is that muscle memory and training. So, and then the other thing that you touched on, let's be frank and let's be blunt about it. You got somebody who comes into a room or to a live firing range, and you exude confidence as an instructor, but then the minute you put 2-3 rounds down range and somebody looks at, that's not as accurate as I've seen before or as I would have expected. Let's be honest here. People will hold you accountable as an instructor and say, shouldn't you know how to shoot? And that's, you have to be able to answer that with, yeah, and demonstrate it, because it's important. It holds tremendous value for a student. I know it did for me as a student when I was first learning. That held tremendous value to be able to confidently look at somebody and say, that person not only can instruct me effectively, but can obviously show me that they're qualified.
Right, and so what a lot of people don't know is my shooting videos that I post. Those are taken after courses,
Yeah.
and it used to be everyone would leave and then I would shoot. And then once I
Okay.
started doing YouTube videos, they were like, "Well, I want to stick around." So then it
Yeah.
would
Great.
so then it would be I would teach the course and
Yeah.
shoot, and I'd have one or two people in the peanut gallery
Yeah.
watching me
Yeah.
shoot. And then now it's turned into a majority of the class will stay back and watch me
Hmm.
shoot. And I think
Yeah.
that is more, even in my courses, I demo every drill the student's going to do.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I don't shoot 100% every single time. If we're shooting 2-inch groups at 5 yards or 3-inch groups at 5 yards, whatever it is, and I have
Hmm.
one bullet kind of fall out of that group there, hey, that's gonna happen. One, I'm a human. Two,
Yeah.
when you go through shooting a bunch, you're gonna have to focus more on hitting those fundamentals correctly. But showing your
Yeah.
students of how, okay, I made a mistake, watch me correct that mistake, is more
Hmm.
important than posting a YouTube video of you hitting every single target because you
Yeah.
edited it every, you know what I mean? You went through 50
Correct.
sets.
Yeah. You
Um,
take, you cherry pick the beautiful shots and the beautiful groups, right? And
right.
that holds no value. I think it's important for everybody to see that, we're training just like everybody else. Okay. There's gonna be situations where, you go for a quick draw or a fluent draw, and, you miss your shirt.
Yeah.
You miss your shirt or something. So yeah, it holds tremendous value to see, for students to see that we are human. Yes, we're experienced, but we're growing. It's a growing knowledge of firearms and training for all of us.
Yeah. Now I will say I have seen a couple instructors where they missed big, and what I mean
Yeah.
by missing big is at the worst case of my shooting, it should be within a 3 to 5 inch group And that's with me running. That's with me walking backwards. That's with me shooting through barriers, whatever it is. Should be within 3 to 5 inches of a group. If we're missing the target completely, I don't know necessarily that we should be teaching people. We should do some self-evaluation and
Absolutely.
then and then go and teach, because what we don't need is people being taught improper things from us watching YouTube videos and regurgitating that.
You know, working with this collaborative group, you know, that you and I are a part of, along with several others, what I've done is I've sat down and kind of jotted down I've listed out a structured approach towards how I want to present information. And alongside that list, I'm jotting down references and resources, right? So, because I don't have all that information, I don't have a certified course to go out and present to people. But guess what? I know plenty of people who have that and have the credentials and have the experience to comfortably go out and train new shooters. And that's my overall goal, is to bridge that gap between all those available resources and the new gun owners, all gun owners, but in particular right now, the new gun owners. I mean, we got 3.7 NICS FBI background checks submitted just in the month of March. And I knew those numbers were going to skyrocket. Now, it's not a 1-to-1 ratio. That doesn't mean that every single background check that was submitted, led to the ownership of a firearm or more. It just means that there is a close correlation. So, I mean, that number, that spike in, background checks, covers something, leads me to believe that we have to attack this now, just like you're doing it and just like everybody else around us is doing it. We have to be able to bridge the gap between new gun owners and all the resources available to them to be responsible gun owners.
Absolutely. So the last question I got here is, what exactly do you look for in a carry gun? What traits should a pistol have for you to decide that that's the one you're gonna carry?
Comfort. And I mean comfort, not just as, does it feel good on my hip? Does it feel good appendix carrying? No. What I mean by comfort is how comfortable is the shooter, new or experienced, with handling the firearm? Is it ergonomic in their hands? Sure, that's got a little bit to do with it. But how comfortable are you shooting it, right? If you can't build that comfort level, then you're never going to reach the safety levels, right, that we would ideally want out of every gun owner. There's always going to be that question in the back of their minds, like, am I doing this right, or whatever the case may be. So you have to, in my opinion, you have to build that comfort level with your specific firearm, whether it's a Glock, whether it's an HK, whether it's a SIG, whether it's a micro compact, full size, compact, whatever the case may be. You have to find something that's comfortable for you. And quite frankly, the best way to figure that out is not just going to the gun counter and picking up 2-3 of them. It's actually going out and shooting a few of them, right? Because every single firearm has different recoil, felt recoil characteristics. Gas, how does it outgas? Ejection, there's so much to, where's that brass going? Is it coming right back at your face? There's so much that goes into building that comfort level with your firearm. So that to me is absolute key. You're comfortable with your firearm, then you're going to approach everything else comfortably. Safety, handling, shooting, and then ultimately, hopefully, spreading of that knowledge.
Okay. Yeah. I will say one thing I would look at if I didn't have a firearm, or what I see students doing that don't have firearms, they'll say, hey, I want to come take your course, but I don't have a pistol. That's why I have a box full of pistols. I let them come up, they can use mine, and then I give them holsters. And the reason why I do that, I want them to just enjoy the training experience. But what I'm also doing is I'm planting the seed in of what is quality gear. And that way they don't have to buy a $20 Uncle Mike's nylon holster. They can see what having a real holster actually is and see the quality of that. Another
absolutely.
Just look at the internet. There are too many paid reviews when it comes to firearms, where individuals will see reviews for XYZ company or XYZ pistol, but they don't see on the training side how, as firearms trainers, we see those pistols that are being talked about as the best break in every class. Every class. Like, I know off the top of my head 5 big name instructors we have the
Mhm.
same list of crap pistols, and that does not
Mhm.
match Guns and Ammo magazine or YouTube,
Yeah.
because they told us
Yeah.
they were great, and they're not.
Yeah.
Like the XD line, I have had more XDs break in a class than any other pistol.
Mhm. Yeah.
That's just me. Like I've had
Mhm.
Tauruses make it through courses that XDs have not. Um,
Yeah.
but
Absolutely.
what I look at too, and this might be something you might have some interest in. This is my instructor pistol
Yep.
that I collaborated with Kick and Steel Custom Arms. And the reason
Mhm.
why I had them develop it like this is so I could hand this to a student, and it
Mhm.
has points built into the pistol that already
Yep.
tells them how to grip it. So I don't have
Yeah.
to sit here and harp on it. I just say, hey, have your thumb touch this texture right here. Have your index finger touch the texturing right here. And it just kind of
Mhm.
helps them better understand it.
Yeah.
And with the first time they're shooting, we want to make it not only as fun as possible, but the best learning experience as possible. So we
Mhm.
don't want to sit
Mhm.
there and yell at them about their grip and yell at them about everything else.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
need to get their nerves out of the way, um,
Yeah.
before they start taking in some of that information. So when
Correct. And something that I would recommend or add on to that is I think that's a fantastic aid. That tactile element is really helps it stick in the mind as to where my fingers and hands and everything else should actually be placed. Good proper grip. And again, bridging the gap between resources and new gun owners, and that includes um, you know practice firearms, blue guns, what we call blue guns, right? There's stuff available out on the market that you can actually get a good grip on. Is it the exact same weight as an actual firearm? Probably not. But for those people that are still a little bit timid to kind of take that slightly bigger leap for them to actually holding a real firearm, it's important to, maybe, okay, let's practice with a blue or orange gun, and then baby step our way into an actual firearm. And then when you're ultimately comfortable with holding the firearm, and getting a good proper grip, then let's go ahead and get some live firing in. So,
sure,
progressive and structured learning. And again, all resources that are available out there. I love your idea, and I'm gonna share that. I'm definitely gonna share that because I think that's a fantastic idea. And I like your gun there. I think you put up a nice image of it on Instagram, and I think it's a great looking gun. Absolutely.
yeah, no, it's definitely a favorite for sure.
Yeah.
The
Yep.
the guy there at Kick and Steel Arms.
Hmm.
This is actually the Sarge package.
Yep.
This whole stippling and Cerakote is only
Hmm.
$350,
Oh, very nice.
and I don't know anybody that does a camo Cerakote and a full
Yeah.
stippling package for
Yeah.
$350. So
Yeah.
he did that for my students. That way they can kind of get into customizing their guns to them,
Mm.
and not have to pay $600, $700, which is what a lot
Yeah.
of the competition charges. So
Yeah.
for a new gun owner, what I think is important to know too is it's okay to. I used to be against customizing guns, but I'm leaning more towards it now because you're making it
Hmm.
better for you.
Yeah.
So when I look at what gun do I want to carry, I look at, one, do I know the fundamentals? Have I mastered to the best of my ability? Because there's no mastering. If I
Hmm.
mastered it, then I would never miss a shot.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
but the best of my ability, I'm getting close enough that I know, okay, when I mess up, I know what part of the fundamental I messed up. I'm not sitting here trying to figure out, oh, well, what did I do? I know what I did.
Yeah.
When you have that knowledge, it makes picking a gun to carry 1,000 times easier.
Yes.
And just my personal opinion with it, everyone has an opinion. I would rather have 10 rounds of trained ammunition than 25 rounds of untrained ammunition.
Yeah.
So if I have I have students that carry 1911s, I have students that carry 6-shot revolvers, and
Hmm.
I might sit there and give them my opinion on it. But if they
Yeah.
can run that revolver and reload it, let's say they can reload the revolver in 2.5 seconds, and they can put 12 shots in a total of, let's say, 6 to 8 seconds, and those
Yeah.
shots are within a 2 to 3 inch group, who am I to
Hmm.
tell them that that's not what they should be carrying?
Exactly. Exactly.
So, and that's how
And
as long as they're running the gun,
mhm,
proficiently, I'm just here to help you run it better. Um,
correct.
I, I, I,
Correct.
I try to look away from individuals that say you should only carry this, because I started off with Glocks, and now I'm carrying a full size P220 Legion. So
Yeah,
obviously,
you touch on something really important there. I'll cover that, or excuse me, I'll put in my 2 cents here when you're done there.
sure, no, yeah, that's it. I mean, it's just going over. Don't listen to figure out what works best for you,
Hmm.
and the best way you can do that, in my opinion, is understanding the fundamentals first, and then going and finding what does kind of work best. Because,
Yeah.
like I said, I started with Glocks. I still run Glocks primarily because I
Hmm.
train a lot of law enforcement individuals.
Yeah.
Well, they're using Glocks. So
Yeah.
I want to run what my students are running. That way, when my
Hmm.
students say, well, I'm shooting low and left, it's because of the gun. No, no,
Hmm.
no, 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 you're not. You're shooting low and left
Hmm.
because your grip is horrendous. That's why
Yeah.
you're shooting low and left.
Yeah.
So that's it. That's it. What do you got?
Awesome. Yeah, I think you touched on something extremely important, and it kind of ties back to that comfort level that I was referring to earlier on in the conversation. And that is one important thing that you'll notice in my channel and my Instagram and all my social media platforms is you're not going to hear that this is the only holster, ammo, gun, belt, magazine that you should ever be using. This is the best. No. What we are looking to accomplish here is to expose all of those resources, gear, equipment, holsters, firearms, you name it, ammunition, so that you, as the new gun owner or ultimately the end user, can make an informed decision as to what's going to actually meet your training needs and your everyday carry needs, right? Because what might work for me, sure as hell might not work for somebody else, right? And we're all different. At the end of the day, personal preference is ultimately what's going to guide your decision making. And what's important is that you are familiar with what you just mentioned exactly, the fundamentals, the safety rules, right? Becoming a responsible firearms owner. After that, once you start getting those fundamentals well established, then you can move forward and actually start getting nitpicky with what works for you, what holster, what type of retention system, what firearm, what stippling, what not stippling, you name it, red dot, open sights, you name it. Then it's up to you as the end user for what you're comfortable with. And that's why on our channel, you won't hear me say, this is the only firearm, this is the only holster you should ever have, this is the only rifle. No, it's I'm presenting the information just like everybody else around us is, like such as yourself, and I really respect that about you. You're presenting the information and you're presenting the training and saying this is the basics. And once you establish this, everything else might come naturally as long as we continue to train and continue to expose you to all of those resources.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, that covers the last question I have for you. Do you have any closing remarks before we end it here?
Yeah, all we would like to say is we're extremely grateful. We really appreciate all of our followers, our supporters. We appreciate our industry partners and collaborative, groups. What we're doing here, I think, is important. It holds tremendous value to expose resources to everybody who is seeking that information. And at the end of the day, what we're looking to do is we're just looking to empower all new gun owners and experienced gun owners, right, to take control of your life and your God-given right to self-defense. That is ultimately the goal, and you can accomplish that by reaching out to all of these resources, myself, Sarge, and everybody else that we're affiliated with, because there is quality equipment, gear, more importantly, training and safety resources to get you on the right track and start spreading the knowledge. Knowledge is ultimately power. So let's continue on, brother.
All right, awesome. Well, guys, hey, that ends it for me. You guys can find One Shot, One Kill over on YouTube and Instagram. I'll put his links in the description box here.
Mm-hmm.
Big thanks to Kick and Steel Custom Arms for the work that they do with the Glock. Huge thanks to
Cool.
McKinney Tech Holsters and Eclipse Holsters. I appreciate it. There are discount codes you guys can use down at the bottom, save you all 15% on holsters. So, as
Mm-hmm.
always, guys, stay tuned for more. Sarge out.